Hey, I'm John Wyrath. I'm a PT at Bike Fit Advisor, and we're going to talk today about the Retool motion capture system. And many of you have probably heard of it. It's been around for a long time. In fact, it's one of the technologies I use for my bike fitting practice, and I've had mine for probably about 10 years or so. And it's a very powerful system. It uses infrared motion capture to record and measure joint positions and measurements and things. And it is a fantastic system when used properly, but there are some shortcomings, or what I call blind spots, that not too many people are super aware of. Even some of the people that use the technology don't quite understand what some of the measurements mean, I think. So in this video, I want to just go through some of the issues that come up and how this applies to a bike fit, and why I feel that these shortcomings or these blind spots are important to point out, and also why I use more than one technology in my bike fitting, which you'll see why after we go through some of these. Most of the measurements that are an issue have to do with the foot and the ankle, and so there's a few main measurements. One is what's called the foot. It's called ankle angle minimum, the ankle angle maximum, and the ankle range of motion, or total range. And then another one that is called foot level from mean. And I'll explain in more detail what all these mean. Okay, so we're going to use this video to take a look at these ankle and foot relative measurements. So to review, the ones we're looking at are the angle of the ankle, they're the minimum angle, the maximum angle, and what's called the range, or the range of the total motion. And then we have this next measurement, which is called foot from level mean. Okay, so let's tackle that one first, the foot from level mean. What does that mean? So quite simply, what that means is, here we are at the bottom of the pedal stroke. What that refers to is this line here, and this angle, this bottom this lower vector of the angle here is sort of following the bottom of the foot, or the midline of the foot to some extent. It's just the path of the foot, you might say. And then this top vector is a horizontal line. So we're following the horizon, or what they're referring to in this is the level. So at the bottom of the pedal stroke, this person their foot is 24 degrees negative. So negative 24 degrees toe down at the bottom of the pedal stroke. If we go to the back side of the pedal stroke, about 9 o'clock, we're closer to 40 degrees toe down. And then a little further, we're 42, maybe 43 degrees. Top of the pedal stroke, 26 degrees. And then look what happens when we go to 3 o'clock. We're actually, this bottom one is the horizontal line. So we're actually +6. We're not in the negative. The heel has actually dropped below the toes. And so this foot from level mean, obviously that word mean, M-E-A-N, refers to an average. It's averaging the entire pedal stroke. So it's taking all of these, and actually every point in between almost, and averaging them together to get basically a running average for this. This was particularly a 15-second capture period. And I believe this individual, that their foot from level mean was about negative 24 degrees. I'll flash up the actual though. But unfortunately, that doesn't really tell us anything, that average. These individual measurements tell us something, because what they are is they are basically attached or located to a certain pedal position, and that's the information we really need. We need to know what position the foot and the ankle is in at a given portion of the pedal stroke, say at the bottom of the pedal stroke. That's important because when we're looking at knee extension, so if we're taking knee extension at the bottom of the pedal stroke, like there, this position of the ankle and the position and the bend in the knee go hand in hand. Case in point, let's say he raises his heel. As this rider raises his heel up, that's going to bend the knee more. It actually drives it forward, and so now we're closer to 58 degrees of flexion if he really raises that heel in this position a lot. It can make a big difference when we're trying to determine whether somebody's saddle height is truly too low, they might just have an ankle mechanics issue. They might need to kind of work on their ankle mechanics, or perhaps cleat position or something else that's causing the ankle. Because let's say, so this individual, let's just say this is correct, 137. That means this person is 43 degrees from full extension, which isn't bad. That's about average. But let's say his ankle, this toe down position, isn't the, what did we say it was, 24 degrees it was here. Let's say instead that it was, if that angle were 45 degrees. So he's really toeing down a lot. That heel is raised up quite a bit, and he's still only at 43. That might tell us that, hey, we might have some, the saddle could potentially even be too high, even though he's smack dab in the middle of the range. We really have to consider the mechanics of the whole system. Okay, so that's what foot from level mean refers to. Let's take a look at now what we're calling ankle angles. And so that's what this is at the top of the pedal stroke, which with this athlete, the foot was 26 degrees from level. Now that's at the ankle in that position is about 91 degrees roughly. And that's actually, instead of measuring from the horizontal, we're taking basically the angle through the ankle there. The problem is, again, we don't know where these are measured in minimum, maximum, and the range. But the problem is those aren't tied to any point in the pedal stroke. We don't know where this minimum occurred. And by minimum, we're talking how closed does the ankle, the toes, are they pulled up towards the shin more, or dorsiflex? And then open, which is plantar flexion, is how much are they toeing down, not relative to the horizon this time, but relative to the tibia. And so, he may be about 90 degrees at the top of the pedal stroke, and he may be, let's take a look again where we were at the bottom of the pedal stroke. This angle here, let's just run this. Let's just do quick. Let's say, okay, he's at 96 degrees there. Well, that's great, and that's good information, because now we know what he is at that point. But the minimum and the maximum, we have no idea where those occur. They could be at the bottom. They could be at the back of the pedal stroke at 9 o'clock. They could be at 3 o'clock. And so not having the ankle measurements broken down that way really limits how useful those measurements are. And incidentally, we're given these same measurements, sort of these minimum, maximum, and range measurements for the knee and for the hip as well. But they're really not as big a deal, and they're not as problematic there. And the reason is if we are getting a minimum for the angle of the knee, we're pretty sure it's happening, somewhere close to the top of the pedal stroke, like in this scenario right here. We know that minimum is, somewhere in the ballpark here. Actually, I can't move that when I'm out of frame. There we go. So, we know that the minimum is going to be towards the top of the pedal stroke here. The knee is going to be bent the most. And for that matter, same kind of goes for the hip. But, and then we come down to the bottom of the pedal stroke. We know that it might not happen exactly at the bottom, but the straightest this knee gets is probably going to happen, somewhere down here. This is more likely that we're going to get the largest angle at the knee right there. So for the hip and for the knee, these measurements are still fairly useful, because we can, based on just the mechanics of cycling, we can correlate, at least to give us some idea. We can correlate there where they occur, this minimum and this maximum. Okay, so the first problem with the Retool system is a fairly small one. I know some out there will say I'm picking nits, and that's probably true, but this is something that's still important to realize. And what this is that it doesn't track the actual joint centers through the pedal stroke. We set the markers ahead of time, and it's important to remember, though, that we can't get too precious with this data. And truthfully, this goes for really every measurement technology out there, unless you're manually adjusting the measurements. Because what happens is these, you can see he has the knee dot up here. This knee dot was actually placed at the center of joint rotation in this position, in this 3 o'clock position. So really, this is where it's most accurate, the placement of this LED up here. When we go backwards into, let's say, actually we'll go forwards into knee extension. So we're extending the leg more and coming down to the bottom of the pedal stroke. The reason this is important is because at this stage, the center of knee rotation is no longer right there on that dot. It is likely moved behind it just slightly. And again, this is a small thing, but it's also why we can't get, again, like I said, too precious with the data. So if I were drawing a vector here, I would probably run it, and the hip's not perfect because I can only see a portion of that, but something like that anyway, just behind the joint just a little bit. And then the same thing goes if I get up to the top of the pedal stroke as that knee flexes more. Now I might actually change the location of that for that measurement. We might actually go in front of it just slightly. Oops, let me pull that back up here. And that's an approximation, of course. So I might run not right on the LED, I might run just in front of it slightly. Because again, that center of rotation has changed just a little bit. But it still is useful. These measurements are still useful. It's only a change in a degree or two. And it's still useful because we can consider the changes to these knee and hip and other angles in relative to one another. They're not absolute measurements, but they are excellent relative measurements. So we can still compare, before and after and get really good information. And again, incidentally, this is something that has to be done with pretty much every measurement technology. This has to be taken into account. When I'm running video like this, obviously I have to, even if I set this up so that I can actually set this up so that it, just like in Dartfish or in others where you can have it follow these joints as they're pedaling, it still never stays completely with you. You still have to readjust and get it into the right position for different locations. So I hope all that made sense. And it is interesting because I think that there are a lot of bike fitters out there using the Retool system that might feel like they're getting really good measurements at the ankle that are applicable for, like I mentioned, saddle height and other things, when that's really not the case. And so that's why I mentioned I use other technologies. I do use a little bit of video to get some of these angles. And luckily, they're pretty easy to get via video. Tends to be very quick. And so people might ask them, well, why not use video all the time? And actually, I'll get to that. There's some very good reasons why I don't use video all the time for bike fitting, but that I'll do in another video. So thank you for hanging in there. I know this is a little longer video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this kind of thing, please think about subscribing, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.